In the autumn of 1888, the East End of London was gripped by a terror unlike anything the city had ever seen. 5 women were murdered in the space of just 10 weeks. The killings were so brutal, so precise, and so deliberate that police initially believed the killer must have had medical training. And then the letters started arriving. Letters sent to the police, to newspapers, to the Central Vigilance Committee. Mocking letters. Taunting letters. Letters signed with a name that has haunted history ever since. Jack the Ripper. For 136 years, the identity of history's most famous serial killer has remained one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in criminology. Over 100 suspects have been named. Over 500 books have been written. Thousands of investigators, professional and amateur, have worked the case. And in 2014, a businessman claimed to have finally solved it. Using DNA evidence extracted from a shawl found at one of the murder scenes. The answer was shocking. The controversy was even bigger. Welcome back to the hidden archive where history hides its secrets. Today we are going to the foggy streets of Victorian London to investigate the case that has never been officially closed. Subscribe if you're new. A new mystery every week. To understand Jack the Ripper, you need to understand the world he operated in. London in 1888 was the largest city in the world, home to approximately 5 million people. It was also a city of extraordinary inequality. The wealthy West End and the desperately poor East End existed in the same city but might as well have been different worlds. Whitechapel, the neighborhood where all 5 canonical Ripper murders occurred, was one of the most densely populated and impoverished areas in Britain. Overcrowded tenements. Open sewers. Rampant disease. Prostitution was rampant because for many women, it was the only way to survive. The gaslit streets were dark, narrow, and dangerous. Police were few. Most murders in the area went unsolved. Violence was common. It was the perfect hunting ground for a killer who knew how to disappear into the shadows. Between August 31st and November 9, 1888, 5 women were murdered in Whitechapel in what investigators at the time and historians since have agreed are connected killings. Mary Ann Nichols, August 31st, found in Bucks Row with her throat cut and her abdomen mutilated. Annie Chapman, September 8th, found in the backyard of a Whitechapel lodging house. Her organs had been surgically removed and placed beside her body. Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes, September 30th. 2 murders in one night. Stride's throat was cut. Eddowes suffered far more extensive mutilation. Her face was disfigured, her kidney removed. Mary Jane Kelly, November 9th. The final and most horrific murder. Kelly was killed indoors, in her room. The mutilation was so extensive that police photographs from the scene were considered so disturbing they were kept classified for decades. After Mary Jane Kelly, the murders stopped. No 6th victim. No clear reason. No arrest. The killer simply vanished. The Metropolitan Police investigation was, by modern standards, almost completely inadequate. There was no fingerprint technology. DNA analysis was a century away. Forensic pathology was in its infancy. The concept of criminal profiling did not exist. What the police did have was witness testimony, which was unreliable, and physical evidence that they largely failed to preserve. One of the most famous moments of the investigation came after the double murder on September 30th. On the same night as Catherine Eddowes' murder, someone wrote a message on a wall near the scene in chalk. "The Jewies are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." Metropolitan Police Commissioner Sir Charles Warren ordered the message wiped clean before it could be photographed because he feared it would incite anti-Jewish riots in the area. The single most potentially significant piece of physical evidence from the entire investigation destroyed on the orders of the senior police officer in charge. Then came the letters. Over the course of the murders, hundreds of letters were sent to police and newspapers claiming to be from the killer. Most were dismissed as hoaxes. But three: the Dear Boss letter, the Saucy Jackie postcard, and the From Hell letter were taken more seriously. The From Hell letter arrived with a preserved human kidney. The sender claimed it was half of Catherine Eddowes' kidney which was missing from her body. A doctor who examined it confirmed it appeared to be human, from a woman approximately 45 years old, matching Eddowes' age. Over 136 years, over 100 suspects have been proposed. Here are the most serious ones. Montague John Druitt, a barrister and cricket player who committed suicide by drowning in the Thames in December 1888, just weeks after the final murder. Senior police officer Melville Macnaghten privately named Druitt as his top suspect, noting that his own family believed him to be the killer. But there is very little direct evidence connecting him to the murders. Aaron Kosminski, a Polish Jewish barber living in Whitechapel who was committed to an asylum in 1891. Two senior police officers named him as a strong suspect. Eyewitness testimony from a police officer named Robert Anderson reportedly identified Kosminski as the man seen near one murder scene, though Anderson's account has been disputed. Francis Tumblety, an American quack doctor who was arrested in London in November 1888 on charges unrelated to the murders and fled to America before they could be investigated further. Scotland Yard sent agents to America to investigate him. Walter Sickert, the famous British painter, was proposed as a suspect by crime novelist Patricia Cornwell, who spent millions of dollars pursuing the theory. Most historians consider the evidence extremely thin. Prince Albert Victor, the Duke of Clarence, grandson of Queen Victoria, was proposed as a suspect in a 1970 book. The theory has been almost entirely discredited by historians. The prince had alibis for most of the murder dates. In 2014, businessman Russell Edwards claimed to have solved the case using DNA evidence. Edwards had purchased a shawl at auction that was reportedly found at the scene of Catherine Eddowes' murder in 1888. The shawl had never been washed, and Edwards claimed it contained biological material from the murder scene. Working with molecular biologist Dr. Yuri Luhlainen, Edwards had the shawl analyzed using a technique called mitochondrial DNA sequencing. The results, Edwards claimed, pointed clearly to one suspect. Aaron Kosminski, the Polish barber, already on the historical suspect list. The DNA analysis reportedly matched genetic material on the shawl to a living female descendant of Catherine Eddowes, confirming the shawl was at the murder scene. And a second DNA sample reportedly matched a living female descendant of Aaron Kosminski's sister. Edwards published his findings in a book called Naming Jack the Ripper, and the announcement made headlines worldwide. Case closed? Not quite. The scientific community immediately raised serious concerns. The chain of custody for the shawl was questionable. It had passed through many hands over 126 years before being analyzed. The DNA was heavily degraded. And a significant error in the original paper was identified, an error that Dr. Luhlainen later acknowledged and corrected. In 2019, a peer-reviewed paper in the Journal of Forensic Sciences cast significant doubt on the methodology and conclusions. The DNA evidence has not been accepted by the scientific mainstream as proof of Kosminski's guilt. Here is the twist that most people don't know about Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper may not be the most prolific murderer in Victorian London. While the 5 canonical Ripper murders were happening in Whitechapel, another killer known as the Thames Torso Killer was committing a series of murders in London that were in some ways even more disturbing. Between 1887 and 1889, At least 4 dismembered torsos were found in the Thames and at construction sites across London. These murders have never been linked to Jack the Ripper, and in fact the police at the time believed they were separate killers. But they have also never been solved. 2 unsolved serial killers operating in London at the same time. And we only remember one of them. The other reason the Ripper's name has lasted 136 years while other Victorian killers have been forgotten is the letters, and specifically the name Jack the Ripper itself. Most criminologists today believe the letters were not written by the killer at all but by a journalist trying to sell newspapers. The name that made this killer immortal may have been invented by a Fleet Street hack looking for a better headline. If that is true, the most famous murderer in history may not even have named himself. Jack the Ripper killed 5 women in 10 weeks in 1888 and was never caught. The investigation failed. The evidence was destroyed or never properly collected. The witnesses were unreliable. And the killer simply stopped, leaving behind no clear motive, no confession, and no definitive suspect. 136 years later, the case remains officially unsolved. The DNA evidence points toward Kosminski but not conclusively. The historical suspect list still has over 100 names. And every few years, a new book, a new documentary, a new DNA test claims to have finally solved it. So far, none of them have. Who do you think Jack the Ripper was? Leave your theory in the comments. Subscribe to the Hidden Archive, a new mystery, every week, where history hides its secrets. End.